And boom! Hello everyone, it is I, your favorite and most mediocre archer. Now at least one of these statements must be true. So hello to everyone tonight. Wow, we're live streaming quite a bit recently, and we've got quite a few different ideas coming along. But hopefully, you guys are doing all right. Now, I've had a pretty weird week, and hello to the notification squad, especially those local to me. I've had a weird week, and I'll explain that a bit later. I've also had a fairly interesting round today. This is, of course, an archery live stream, not a personal vlog. But there are a few things I want to talk about for my reflection today. So, hello to everyone. Hello to Jacques, who made it indeed. I do have some form checks to go through, but not today. We'll do it at a different time. By the way, if you want to get your form checked live by me, send me an email of your video. I normally wait till I get 2 or 3 before I do another live stream. Now, one of the ones I got is actually unviewable for a different reason, but we'll talk through these a bit later. So, yes, how are we today? So, I don't have any archery juice on me right now, but if you have to know, the last thing I drank was a matcha au lait. Now, there's a green tea with milk. I got it from a ramen place, and I had a nice ramen. It was a chicken katsu ramen. I had ramen for a while, so it was a really nice meal. So I'm full of ramen and full of green tea. Though I wouldn't mind another cup of tea somewhere, which I don't have right now, but later. I've got a lot to do tonight, but I thought I'd share this because this might be a short live stream where I talk through some various things. Now, I mentioned before I had a very interesting week, and the reason why it is interesting is that, well, I've been through a bit of trauma, and I mean this seriously. So I'm starting the stream on a bit of a downer. Now, as a teacher, you get exposed to certain things. Teaching is a very emotionally draining job, and as an introvert, more so. I get burnt out very easily. But what happened on Friday was I was involved with an assault. Not physically, personally, but I was in the area, and I had to deal with the aftermath of a physical assault. This was my, I mean, normally, this sort of thing happens like once in your career. This is my second time in 6 months. I was in some pretty bad headspace all weekend. I had a lot of things planned, a lot of work to do. But I had a fairly traumatizing experience. So I've been spending the last couple of days kind of like not eating, not sleeping, just kind of trying to get over it. So wasn't really in an archery mood. It was a perfect weekend, no rain, no wind, nice and warm. But I had a really hard time just like getting normal things done. So I cancelled everything. Just to try and get over it. And this isn't like long-term trauma. It's more like short-term. You get over it after a few days. But I guess it's a serious message for those who go through certain experiences. It's worth sharing this sort of thing, I guess. I guess for me, like the most surreal thing is, I went from outside the school gates where it happened, where people got hurt, and you're kind of burnt out trying to handle and manage the crisis and communicate, and then you walk to school and people are having like drinks and snacks and nothing's gone wrong. It's just surreal. I kind of understand, people who go through this on a daily basis through high stress jobs. Things like the emergency services or the armed services, and they try and adapt to normality again. It's kind of tough. So that was my my mindset coming into this week. So I coached yesterday. I didn't shoot yesterday. I coached yesterday. Still kind of messed up. So didn't really have that focus, that concentration to go through a whole round as much as I wanted to. It was such a nice day yesterday, but I sat back and I didn't feel like it. I just wanted to just do nothing. So we coached. It was a nice experience too. And today we had a round, and I was kind of still not really into it. But we had 3 people turn up, and you need 3 to shoot a round. And I didn't want to bail out on my fellow archers. So there were three of us. We shot the round, and that's what I'll talk about today. One of our shooters was a new shooter. It was his first round. We taught him how to do scorecards. We ran him with the ropes. We made sure that he knew how to score, how to do math. I always make the new guy do the paper scorecard. We have a digital scorecard on our mobile phones, and we have the paper scorecard. And I always make the new guys do the paper scorecard. They have to understand how it works, because when they do competitions, they have to score, and the paper scorecard takes precedence over the electronic scorecard. It's too easy to do online scoring because it's like a calculator. He's like 15, so his math was pretty bad. And we didn't tease it for it. It's actually a fun day. It was a pretty casual day, so we didn't mind that it took long to score because it's important to teach people the process. And in this case, the process of learning to do the paper scorecard correctly was absolutely important because when things get screwed up, you have to fall back on the paper card. Okay? So, what happened, and I'll talk about the funny thing first, and then I'll talk about the reflection part. So what happened was that we were doing a 30-meter round. It's the same round that we covered in our last week shoot, which I did in my last stream. So I had a reflection then about the draw weight. And by the way, our archer did get lighter limbs, so he did address that problem. And now he's shooting fine. He's still learning, of course, but he can pull the bow back. Thank goodness that he made the right decision. So after that round, and if you remember the last stream, I mentioned that I didn't trust my sight. I was shooting off to the left, and I was kind of hesitant on changing the sight, and I didn't, and I had a pretty mediocre round. I shot okay. I wasn't a bad shot, but the score was quite low compared to what I was shooting. Today we shot the same round, and as we were shooting, this is hilarious. As we were shooting this 30-meter, 72-arrow round, we noticed that our scores and our ratings were skyrocketing. Like we were all shooting fairly well, and we were up to high score. And during our break, we were browsing through the results, and like, wow, nice job, good ratings. We get our state rankings higher. And, we were hitting like golds and reds all day. And then we realized halfway through that the person who organized and published the round on an online score database, Archer's Diary, instead of putting a 30-meter, 72-arrow round, we were doing a 70-meter round, but we're shooting at 30 meters. So all these 10s, all these all golds and X's we were scoring were actually registering at Olympic distance at 70 meters. So we were like shooting like better than the Korean archers. Like we were shooting like Kim Woo Jin level at 30 meters. We were scoring at 70. So we were like probably like breaking records. And then we realized, oh, hang on a moment. We kind of have the wrong round. So it was kind of awkward because like we already started scoring, and you can't change the round when you're scoring because the scores have been registered. They're live on the database now, so you can't just go back and change it. So we were kind of this dilemma where, well, I can't add people to another. I have to make a new round on the online service and then add the archers, which means I have to remove the archers, like retire them from the competition, and then put them into the second round because we were already registered in the competition. But that meant our scores were locked in. So we basically shot half a 72-arrow ranking round. Remember, this is the round which every world event shoots. This is how you rank things. So the way we were going, I would have probably beaten a world record if I accidentally kept shooting this 70-meter round at 30 meters. It happened. It's an admin problem, but it was just funny. Like, we were so impressed with our scores and our ratings, and I would have gotten like, sponsorships from like Hoyt or something and guaranteed entry to the next World Cup. But that was hilarious. So we retired that round halfway through, and even with our retired scores, we only shot 36 out of 72 arrows on this 70-meter round. We had already beaten our personal best. We we'd already set records. We already got high ratings, like super high, because we shot at half the distance by accident. So we solved that problem. We yes, Byron, scoring snafu. So we solved the problem. So we basically had to retire ourselves and make a new round. But here's the thing, right? This is why the paper scorecard is so important. The What happened was that because we had to redo the entire scoring, we basically had to go back to the scorecard and backfill the electronic version with the new round with the scores that we shot. And that is why the paper scorecard is so important, because the paper scorecard takes precedence. There are other cases where, for example, especially if you're shooting field and there's not much reception for your phone, you can't synchronize your online scoring with what's happening on the field. So the paper scorecard takes precedence. That always gets vetted and filled out and submitted. And in this case, in a small scale controlled scenario, we just happened to have a snafu. So we had the wrong round. We had to cancel all our points for that round, and then we started a new round. But instead of shooting the whole thing again, which wouldn't have been a bad thing, but obviously we already shot half the round, so we made the new correct round, and we went to the scorecard and we filled everything in. And that was the lesson learned. So unfortunately, we couldn't delete the old round, but we couldn't leave it standing because we basically had, like, we cheated our way to the top ranked in the state. So I had to go to the back end of the club and delete the round manually because we couldn't let the record stand. It was a mistake. It was an input error. So we had to backfill it, delete the old round, and yeah, we shot the 70-hour round. Our new shooter, who's our 15-year-old intermediate, he did a really good round. It's his first time shooting an official round, first time shooting at 30 meters of sights, and he scored well. I mean, I coached him yesterday, and now he scored the equivalent of like fifth in the state. So it was very impressive to see him shoot well. It was nice to get him out there. He's a bit of a shy kid, so it was kind of like, we had to like kind of push him to have a go, but he wanted to have a go. He shot well. He probably didn't feel it because it was his first round and he's making a few mistakes, but I'd say he did really, really well. All me, of course, but really, really cool. So that was my round today. And of course, by the time I finished, my headspace had cleared up. I felt a lot better about it. I had a few, like, F me moments where I'm like, oh man, I just really screwed up. But I ended up pulling back a lot of good points, and I'll share my score a bit later. Yes, Player Hunter. It's not just so much the redundancy, but yes, the point is that we have a double scoring system, and I believe the same thing happens at world level as well. You don't have one person scoring. You need two people scoring. Double scoring is there so to verify that nobody's made a mistake. Therefore, the error values are consistent and the totals are consistent. When you have a single scorer, you have more mistakes. People will do bad math, they'll add things incorrectly, and we've had some big problems where people have added like 100 extra points or something, or 20 extra points, not by intention, but by accident. Double scoring helps remove that margin for error. Okay, so people will have better scoring more consistently. So we made sure we had that. And yes, as Player Hunter mentioned, you need that redundancy. It used to be two paper scorecards, but since Archery Australia moved to online scoring to synchronize scores to a database, we have one online electronic and one analog, which is the paper. So it's crucial. Yeah, you might lose a scorecard, so you have the electronic, or the electronic might break down, so you have the paper, and that's just good planning, organization in general. We were shooting at a 122 centimeter face. The round we shot was an AA 3720, so an Archery Australia 30 meter 72 arrow round. The standard world archery ranking round, it's a 70 720. That's 70 meters, 72 arrows. So we were shooting half the distance. The main reason was we had a new guy who was an intermediate, so we shot at a close distance. For me, I wanted to improve my previous score from last week. Our other Bearbo archer just wanted to practice his form with his new finger tab, and our new guy was a new guy, so we wanted to make a round which is easy to do. So we don't always shoot long distance rounds, it's always about fun rounds. Yeah, look, not everyone scores. The reason scores are useful because for us, we have a progression. where if you shoot enough rounds, you can claim awards and badges. And more importantly, it gives us an objective measurement of where we are. It gives you a rating, it gives you a ranking, and why not everyone wants to compete? It's nice to know like how you hold up in an actual round rather than just shooting and roughly estimating where you are. A lot of people don't have a clear idea of how good they are, and often, especially self-taught archers or recreational archers, inflate how good they are because they can hit a grouping at this size at this distance. But the whole point of scoring is to give you an objective score. So people tend to avoid that. That's fair. But it's why we do it, so we score. So, on to the reflection. Firstly, I'm going to go over last week's round, because it's nice to see progression. So let's look at last week's round. I'm going to bring up my scorecard from last week, and you see why this is kind of a big deal. So let's bring up last week's scorecard right here. And this is what happened last week. So lots of yellows and reds, and the score was 589 out of 720, which is a fairly low score. I believe this would be a white rating, if barely that. Because this is a close distance round on a big target, it's supposed to be super easy. So you need to have an exceptionally high score, like all golds everywhere, to get an elite rating. So this is a very poor, I'll say average, but it's a poor round, even for my standards. So we'll go through what happened here. First end, in my practice end, I was hitting all golds. But then when we started shooting, I don't know what happened, and this is what I talked about my last end. I kept on floating to the left. It wasn't because the bow was out of tune. It was because something changed in my form, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And for the first half of the round, I kept on shooting with the sight on the gold, but the arrows floating left. I was hesitant to aim off because I thought I was doing it wrong. I tried to change my form. As a result, my first half was fairly dismal. Now, for a benchmark, 50 plus is good. Now, of course, if playing elite level, 60 or bust. But for our average level, anything above 50 is a good result. You want above 300 for your 36 arrow mark. So there should be 50 plus on average. I got 42. That was dismal. No golds there. 48, 48, 47, 44, and a 52. That was a decent one there. So 10, 9, 9, 8, 8, 8. That to me should be the minimum for what you're shooting at 30 meters. So that's disappointing. And I do have a propensity to not hit 10s. I tend to clip gold on 9s, but not hit 10s. So that was kind of disappointing. So on the second distance, on the same distance, on the second half of the round, I decided to go, you know what, stuff it. I'm shooting consistently, but just not in the right place. So let's just shoot to the right. So first end, we started kind of okay, 49, and then I started homing on the gold because I was aiming off to the right, and I got 50, 51, 54, 50, 52. That's a very good comeback. So the first half was 281. And the second half was 308 for a total of 589. That was a 42 rating, and that's pretty dismal. I was averaging like 50 and 51 ratings. A 42 rating is below my standard. So that was a disappointing round. I was shooting fairly well, but I hadn't quite gotten my head around where I should be aiming. And I would find today what I was missing in my process. And this is why the reflections are so good, because I'm going to share with you what I came across and a certain mentality which you need to have a high score. So before I show my new scorecard, I'm going to talk through a couple of things. So the first thing is that as an instructor, when I was teaching my new guy, I taught him the basics how to use a clicker, because he just started using a clicker and he was doing quite well. And I said, look, don't worry about too much. Just anchor tightly and power it through. I was just going in power, power, power. You're locking in there, anchor, and then power. Don't worry about pulling your arm back. Don't worry about where your sight is. Your sight's on target. Just look at the target, keep the sight there, power it. At 10 meters we were practicing, you can't miss the target. So that's why, some of the kids wanted to push the target to 20 meters. Said, no, you're staying at 10 meters because you were training. You were not trying to use distance to train. You were training at 10 meters and shooting correctly at 10 meters, because the way you shoot at 10 meters is the same you shoot at 30 meters. You can't go back and expect to shoot the same. You need to reinforce good habits at a close distance. So I was teaching our new shooter to basically power, because when I was doing archery, I hesitate a lot on the clicker. So when he was learning, he was still getting the control right. They're still fishing quite far off, but he was stretching through very cleanly. I kept telling him, power it through. But as an instructor, one of the advantages is what you teach to new people are fundamentals, and that reinforces your fundamentals. So while I'm showing him to go power, when I was having trouble today with my shot process, I was telling myself the same thing. You come up, power. And that's the second thing to think about. It's the mentality. When you shoot with correct form, it's actually not as intuitive as it looks, because intuitively your brain tells you to feel the weight of the bow and the alignment of the bow. You should feel a certain heavy weight, like you feel it in your back and your shoulders, and you have to lean back and power it through. But good form, correct forms, the correct shoulder alignment, correct elbow rotation, correct expansion, they actually make your shot easier. And when you do it right, it's deceptively easier. It feels wrong, because to get optimal alignment, you have to get the angle right. This is almost like the angular draw concept, right? But you don't have to be fully stretched out to get a good shot. Sometimes and often, by getting the right alignment here, the right elbow alignment here, you sit into the bow. The feeling is you open the bow up and you sit inside that. And because you're working bone on bone action, so everything lines up perfectly, it actually feels a little too easy. And all you do is squeeze through and you finish the shot. That's just all you do. And especially in the second half of my round, it felt like I was not shooting correctly, because I was working really hard for the first half, but in the second half, because I was making adjustments and actually doing it right, it felt easier. It kind of threw me off. But as I learned to trust the process, I was dropping arrows into the gold. I wasn't even thinking about it. It was like, as long as I do this, it might not feel right, but it's correct. And it would just it kept on flopping arrows into the gold. It also addressed my left problem, because I was shooting right now. Because my problem was that I was plucking the string. It kept on going to the left. So what happened was, I just went, you know what? I'll trust the process. It might not feel right here, but I'm doing it right. It doesn't feel right here, or here, or here. But the process is working. I kept on doing this, and my hand would follow through. I'm like, that's not what I normally do. I normally go like that. And that's wrong, you're plucking it. So it just came through, and every time I did the same process, it would float and drop into the gold. Even when I thought I was aiming too far to the right, I was compensating naturally and would drop into the gold. And that is the message of this video, is to let the process happen. Trust your process, and your arrows will drop into the gold. So let's have a look at the score. Let's have a look. So that was my score last week. Let's quickly see chat for a bit here. Little rant there, but hopefully you got something out of it. No, I want to address Play Hunter for me here. So let's get back to the chat here. So Play Hunter, yes, there are some technical differences with shooting at longer distances. You will have to lean back more. There will be a bit more pressure on certain muscles, but the process is the same. You don't shoot differently at 70 meters because it's 70 meters. It's different alignment, but the process is exactly the same. As long as you practice the fundamentals at close range, the fundamentals stay the same at long distance. So that's what I mean by you shoot the same way at 30 meters as you would at 10 meters as you would at 70 meters, because it's all about confidence and flow. You watch a pro shooter at the World Cup today, for example, they have a very clean process. They're in, and especially the really good confident archers. Example, Kim Woo-jin, most of the time, Zhang Haijin, Chang Haijin, the women's champion, they shoot quite quickly at 70 meters. They go in, pop, and 10. And Kim Woo-jin touches his glasses, right? So he touches his glasses, pops the shot, 10. They don't hold there and go, ooh, I'm going to try really hard to hit 70 meters, and then they do the shot. Now, the ideal shot is the same consistent process. At 10 meters, you go draw, in the gold, pop, and that's your 10. At 30 meters, same thing. 70 meters, ideally, same thing. You may have to hold the shot for a burst of wind, or there might be some doubt, but you're supposed to push that out and you shoot the same rhythm and the same process. That's what I mean. So physically, it'll be slightly different, but process is the same. Back to what I was talking before. So, our scorecard. So with that in mind, with our process in mind, this was my last scorecard last week. You can see red and blues. Let's have a look at this week's scorecard. Well, isn't that a world of difference? Look at that. Look at that. Some wonky shots. These were bad shots. I plucked the string. But when I did it right, I did it right. See, on last week's round, these were bad shots, the blue ones. The reds were good shots, but not aimed in the right place. Second round was pretty good. But this week, that is more like it. That's more like it. Morning, Leonard, our favorite copyright attorney. Glad you can join me for once. So, that is, what, a 30-point jump, isn't it, right? So, if we get back to our feed there, yep. So, look at that. So, we've gone from 589, so 590 to 620. So, we jumped 30 points in less than a week. Now, of course, this is still not elite level, okay? It's only a 30-meter round on a big face. It's not elite level, nowhere near. This got me, what, a black rating, so it actually got me to my 50 average. So that was last week's round, a 42.6 rating, and today was 50.1. This round is brutal, by the way. If you want to get an elite rating, you need, like, out of 720, you need like 700 points to get an elite rating. Okay, so this is not the easiest thing to do. I had a choice between the 60 meter round and the 30 meter round. I would probably have scored higher ratings on the 60 meter round than shot 30 meters because I wanted to, and we all wanted to. But yes, as Byron said, a metal detector. We found gold today. We found gold. And you know what? When you do it right, and you get the top, like you hit the center, it feels doubly good because you can have a good shot, but not hit the middle of the target. But when you have a good shot and you do hit the middle, it just comes together. It validates everything you've done. So your training, your process, you trust it. And it keeps on going. You do it once, you do it next time. You go, wow, I can do this. I can hit 10s. I can get golds. And you do it next time, do it next time. You lose that randomness. And for me, fatigue wasn't a problem. And accuracy wasn't a problem. Tuning wasn't a problem. But that was that validation. Now, the fact that I didn't get an elite score doesn't matter. The fact is, we improved. Last week was a shocking round. Well, it's below my average. We come back to it. Hell yeah. Oh yeah. The 720s are punishing. It does hurt. And again, especially at 30 meters. If you're doing 70 meters, there's a lot of forgiveness because the ratings for 70 meters is, for especially recurve, much wider in range. So if I shot like a 620 out of 720 at 70 meters, I would qualify for the Olympic Games. Okay, so there's a much bigger gap there. But 620 at the 30 meters is like, well done, you can shoot. Have a participation trophy or something. It's punishing. So you really have to be like 700 level to get like, you know, a decent rating for this round. But the point is, hell yeah, that is really, really satisfying. So let's talk through what I actually did. What happened here? Let's talk through this round. So again, just to show off last week, this week. So all the good shots that were red became gold. All the blue shots were still crap. You still have bad shots. Look, as much as you want to expect perfection, you don't get that. Like, people will make mistakes, even at the elite level. If you watch the World Cup today on the World Archery live stream, which I did, by the way, you still you still see people pluck the string and shoot an 8 at 70 meters, and that's fair. Like, getting 9s is hard, getting 10s even harder. But here we go. That to me was good. I'll answer the question a bit later. So back to our scorecard. So what happened apart from everything looking better? So what happened was, firstly, the first end, I scored again. I scored really well my practice end. But my first end was trash. That's like barely better than this one. I mean, it looks better because it's more gold, but it had more misses or more blues. So that was disappointing. So 4-3 was a bad start. But that was the only bad end. Every other end was 50 plus. And remember what I said. Anything above 50 at any distance, at any target face, is a good standard to have for any person. I mean, again, for an elite archer, you want like a 60. But at any level, 50 plus is validating. It means you're doing really well. And that is a pretty good start. I was pretty happy with that. Remember last end, I got 281 for the last week, 304. We came back on nearly 12, over 20 points. And then 308 to 316. Again, big gains there. So the first end was a dropped end. This was when I realized I was shooting to the left. But because I knew I had this habit, I decided to aim off to the right. I didn't change my sight because my sight couldn't go any further. If it's set to my correct form. But when I shoot incorrectly, I float to the left. So I decided to go, you know, whatever, I'll take the advice from last time. You sight for your current form, not for what it should be. And because I was shooting consistently to the left, I shot to the right. And that's the result. These weren't bad shots, these were okay, but they landed where I was pointing the bow at, and that's where I had this X99, 10, 10, 10, 9, 10, 10, 9, 9, 9. Makes math really easy, by the way, when we have these higher scores, because you just subtract from 60 rather than add together to make the total score. So the first half of the round, I had this really sweet spot, but then it got better. We had a bit of a break. This is where we reset the score because we kind of messed the round up. But this was where things changed. So, what happened in the second distance? What happened was that that realization that when you sit in the bow, it feels a certain way. And I let myself get into the bow. I didn't try to use the bow and fight that to pluck the string or fling the arrow the right way. It's basically just put it here, and it might slip a bit of my fingers. I have an issue with my release hand moving a bit. So basically, plonk it here. If it slipped, restart. I didn't shoot bad shots. I didn't go, oh, I should have let it down. It's more like, okay, let it down, and then fix the grip, get it double tight, get it in here, power. What I taught my junior archer, I started applying to myself. Power it through. And every time I did that, sorry about that, every time I did that, that would happen. Those golds would happen. It was almost surreal because you could just see the arrow flying toward the target. You could hear the shafts clack together as a grouping happened. There were 3 of us too, so it wasn't like it was consistent. But seeing grouping after grouping in the gold with a couple of outliers, that just reinforced that notion that you just keep on doing the same thing over and over again. Can I do better? Yes, I can. But I am very satisfied with this. And what I noticed was that when I did it correctly, especially these middle ends, what I realized was that as my form became more fluid, and more in line and more correct, that leftward drift, which I was compensating for, was disappearing. I was shooting to the right. So I would now put my dot on my sight on the gold, and the shot will hit gold. And that's why it's so important to get your sights correct, because when you're aiming off, you will mentally go through an extra step that will distract you from your process. You have to figure out how off you need to aim. But when you calibrate your sight and your form is correct so that the arrow will go into the gold, as long as you point it straight on the gold, it simplifies the process. And that's what I did. That's what I realized. I didn't realize it initially, but as I did in the round, I realized that I didn't have to aim off. If I do it right, it's going to go straight. You trust the process. And that's what happened. The high point was this all gold. I finally got one. At 30 meters on a big face, it isn't hard to do this, right? Most people should get this fairly easily. But remember what I've been through. I've been through, 6.5 years? Half of which was spent being a coach and a president, not shooting and going through a very hard time. Not shooting rounds, being very rusty. It's taken me 6.5 years. But I finally have an all gold award. And that is the highlight. I'm sure most people have one. Okay, it's not hard to get. But remember me, right? I didn't have the opportunity from the club to shoot enough rounds to claim an award. I didn't have enough practice to shoot all gold, even on an easy round on an easy target. But now I finally have one. I'm satisfied that I've reached one of my goals. So I'm going to claim this. I'm going to try and get the system in place so that I can claim this. I want to start my collection. I'm starting late, but I'm starting. So, my last end was still disappointing there. A bit of a letdown. I started well, but yeah, I thought I'd do better then. 50 still isn't bad, but a little below standard. And a few points off. Again, it's very punishing with this distance, but to me, that should have been every single wind. Now, of course, our barebow shooter beat me. Of course he did. He's a much better shooter. One of the funny things you find is that at 30 meters, it is very close. Close distance is a very good equalizer. Doesn't matter if you're shooting compound or recurve or barebow. If you're competent and skilled in your classification, all of you would be shooting all golds. You might think, well, compound is easy. Yeah, they kind of do actually. Compound has it easier, but a barebow shooter should also be able to shoot all golds consistently. It might seem weird, but at 18 meters, at 30 meters, the differences in that skill ceiling aren't that high. When you get to 50 meters, that's when things really separate. Compounds will still be very consistent at shooting golds on a smaller target. Recurves and barebows will naturally disperse a bit more. But at close distances, assuming equal skill, someone should be able to get all golds with every kind of bow at 30 meters. So that was interesting, of course, but he's a very good shooter. I'm not a very good shooter, so we should be competing against each other. But at 30 meters, again, you can see the skill gap is very close because, again, it's a close distance. But that was my my result. So again, that's my 30 meter score. A modest score, not a great score, but we all think about improvement. We all think about personal best. To go from last week and struggling to do this, I think seeing this scorecard, that is very fulfilling. Like psychologically, it's a huge morale boost. You can see that the rate has gone back up. And again, I'm looking forward to my next round. And just remember, I am officially recovering from trauma. Okay, so during this round, I still have that I mean, now I'm feeling okay now. That's why I'm live streaming. But when I was shooting, I was still having that kind of like that aftershock, that post trauma kind of like mindset. So I wasn't in the best zone to shoot. But as things started to hit the zone, then things opened up. Could I shot better? Possibly. Yes, of course I could. But it was a good morale boost, and that's why shooting a round like this, a 30-meter round with a big face, it can be very fun and fulfilling because you don't expect too much. You can expect a high score, of course, but when you hit golds, it feels good. And that is the lesson of the day. So that's my rant, or my reflection rather. That's my reflection vlog. I learned a lot about my techniques. I've learned to trust the process. And the thing with Recurve is that if you take time off, if you don't do this like for more than a few days in a row, then you will naturally lose the touch. It is such a sensitive thing. And if you don't maintain that, I'll move closer here. If you don't maintain that, then you find yourself having to relearn the same steps, the same rhythm, the same feel every single time you shoot. And that's how you're going to maintain this. I had a few days off. I didn't shoot my recurve all week. I was shooting my horsebow because it was raining. I was running late. I didn't have any daylight, so I didn't shoot my recurve. And on Saturday, yesterday, I didn't shoot at all. So coming back today and shooting for the first time, it felt like starting from scratch again. You just have to relearn the feel, and unfortunately, sometimes you have to waste a few ends to get the feel and the sight setting. And the sooner you get it right, the better it is. So I was happy with that. Now I'm actually feeling positive about my round, and that helps with trauma recovery. When you're doing things you like and you feel good about it, and you eat good ramen, then it helps a lot. Okay, so back to some chat stuff. So what are we talking about in chat? Let's see. Yeah, like as Play Hunter said, knowing in theory and physically doing it are different things. Anyone can say this is the way you should be shooting, but if you don't show it, then you're not doing it right. So it's very distinct to say that. Player Hunter again. Does that mean for pinpoint accuracy, regardless of bow used, you should be about 13 meters from 13? I said 30, not 13. I'm not sure what you mean. Does that mean for pinpoint accuracy, regardless of bow used, you should be 13 meters from the target? That's not what I said. I'm not sure what you mean either. Clarify, please. But what I am saying is that at close distance is an equalizer at close distance. As you get further away, the differences in the bow type will greatly increase. So a compound and a bare bow shooting on a 20-meter target, if they're both really good in their own bow, they should actually score the same. Compound shooter should shoot 6 out of 60 at 20 meters on a big face. That's a given, given how accurate the bow is and how easy it is to shoot a compound. But a bare bow shooter who has correct technique and has the right string walking reference point or face walking reference point should be able to also hit 6 out of 60 at 20 meters on a big face, because you have your aim point. You're basically using a sight. When you shoot like instinctive or gap, it's a bit different because there's more variation. But string walking is very precise. Sights even more so. At close distance, you should be able to shoot very confidently at up to 30 meters. And that's why bare bow is not so much a division in target archery at world level. That's 70 meters only. And at 70 meters, bare bow can barely hit the target. Their grouping is the size of the target itself. Whereas with a recurve, when you group in the red or in the gold. That's what a good archer does. So when people talk about, why do we not have bare bow in the Olympic Games? Because bare bow shooters don't shoot that well. I'll be doing an analysis of historical world archery at some point in the future, where people did shoot longbow and bare bow, and their groupings at 50 meters or less, or even 30 meters, is huge. Like at 30 meters, they're grouping all over the target. And today, we have a high standard enough to the point where they group the size of my pop filter here. Like this thing here is like the gold ring, right? You can hit this at 70 meters with all 6 arrows. That's today's standard. So, things have changed a lot since then. What's my highest score? Because we shoot different rounds, I don't have a highest score. I just shoot different rounds. I can't really measure so much for that. My highest rating, I believe, was like 60 something, which is like way above average. But it was some kind of easy round, which we didn't officially score. So I don't remember how I got it or why I got it. It was like 5 years ago. Now I average 51 rating. That means, depending on the round, for this round it was 600 plus. I can do better, but it's nice to come back. sorry, play hunter. Yes, 30 meters. So for the sake of hunting, you want to engage a target at a distance where you have a 100% hit rate. That's hunting. The responsibility of a hunter is to get a clean, ethical kill. If you engage your target at a distance where you can't confidently hit, then you are, going to make the animal suffer. If you, at best, you miss completely, you scare the animal. At worst, you wound the animal, but you don't kill it. That means it has to suffer for a prolonged time, and you have to chase the animal, and it leads to unnecessary suffering. So if you're going to be a proper ethical hunter, you have to be able to engage in the right distance. It's why even compound hunters will only engage at under 50 meters at at 30, at 20, 10 even, depends how well you stalk. If you can stalk your prey and get really close or wait for the prey to come to you, then you've got a bit of an advantage. But if you choose to shoot at a target which you're not confident at shooting, then you risk injuring, not killing the animal. It's why 3D is so interesting, because 3D archery really goes over 30 meters. It might be maybe 50 at most. Field archery goes up to 60 meters. But 3D, rarely do you go over 30 meters. And especially if you shoot bare bow, you don't shoot more than 50 or 40 meters or something. You shoot at different animals, different distances and different terrain, but you're not going to shoot long distance. There's a question before, I think it was Shalasa. Is string walking healthy for the bow? If you calibrate the bow to shoot string walking, yes, it's fine. It's uneven, but modern bows are they're very durable. If you're shooting traditional bows, it's different because you are placing uneven tension on the limbs. But an Olympic bow or modern bow with fiberglass and foam and whatever carbon core, you can really rough up the limbs, and string walking's okay. And again, you can change the tiller to even out the amount of difference you have in your string walking. So if you're shooting trad, then yes, it can be bad for the bow. If you're shooting modern, then you're shooting okay. Rocket Fist has a point there. The main advantage of these short distances is that it lets us trad occasionally make compound shooters cry. Yeah, it's true. Like a bad compound shooter will shoot badly at all distances. The bow will give you an inherent advantage, but someone who is bad or unskilled or learning with compound will be outshot by recurve and trad, and I've seen it happen. Compound shouldn't be competing against these things, but the thing to remember with recurve and to a greater extent compound is that skill is skill, right? If you are skilled at your bow, you will shoot as well as your division allows you to. If you're skilled at compound, you will shoot lots of perfect scores. If you're skilled at recurve, you won't shoot perfect scores, but you will shoot very high. But if you are bad, then you are bad. You will miss as badly as anybody else. The bow isn't your crutch, even for a compound. The bow isn't a crutch. So a bad shooter will shoot badly. A good shooter will shoot even better than a recurve shooter who's equally good. So yeah, it's a good equalizer. But yeah, it makes people quiet, you cry. Yes. How long have you been doing archery, Amina? About 6.5 years now. Yes, Rocket Fist has a point there. Just answer James, Play Hunter's question. Yeah, like hunters won't engage at anything more than 20 meters or 20 feet. But it's you cannot risk a miss with a bow, with a shot. Even with a gun, you can't miss the animal. You have to. It's why you can't hunt without training. You can't expect to bring down a deer or whatever if you've never practiced with your bow on the range. Isn't that easy? And obviously, the more confident you are in shooting, then the longer the longer distance you can engage. But at short distances, when you can hit, then you feel more confident. Good example, okay? Look, I shoot bare bow. I can confidently hit gold like 10 out of 10 times at around 18 meters or 20 meters. Beyond that, I spray. I can shoot well, but not well enough to hit a deer-sized target. If I shoot bare bow with my longbow or my my Samick Sage, I can hit a target in the gold at 20 meters consistently. I can snap arrows in rather than 20 meters. I'm not bragging, but that's just competency, right? You know how to use your tool well. Can I shoot my same age up bare bow to 50 meters? No, I don't have a reference point. I'm not confident, and my form isn't good enough for the bow to shoot that accurately. But if I had to hunt, I can at up to 15, 20 meters. Any more than that, I'm gonna bring it closer. Because mentally, you see the picture, you see the deer in this case, not the target, but the deer, you know where to place the point of the arrow. You know what it should look like. And if you don't recognize that sight picture, you don't take the shot. That's how it is with a bow. Different from a gun, where you can, change sight settings and align and compensate for drop. But for an arrow, if you can't release it correctly and confidently, then you don't take the shot. I'm saying this as a non-hunter, by the way, but I believe hunters will probably agree with me. All right. Yeah, James had a point there. I think there's a point to be made here. Bare bow shooters don't shoot poorly at 70 meters. They shoot amazingly well at 70 meters. It's just that at 70 meters, amazingly well doesn't mean all gold. Amazingly well means all your arrows are on the target. And I'm not saying this to like make fun of bare bow shooters, but bare bow standard is much different to compound standard. So yeah, again, at close distance, amazingly well actually means you all group in the same color. Gold is easily possible. Again, look at the bare bow division at indoor, like the Lancaster Classic, for example, or the Vegas shoot. The bare bow shooters will typically hit gold bare bow, 40 centimeter target, 18 meters, they'll hit gold. Compound will also hit gold. Recurve will also hit gold. It's not hard. It's hard to do it all the time, but it isn't hard to do. So if a compound faced a bare bow at 18 meters, it would actually be a fairly close competition. It's not like long distance at 50 meters. Compound versus bare bow, it's a washout for the compound. The compound will win hands down. The bare bow will not come close. But at 20 meters, at 18 meters, it's a lot closer, and they can almost compete on the same playing field. The reason they don't, the bows are different, but the result is going to be very similar. Hi Martin, I just want to say thanks for all the videos you've produced. You are welcome. You started feeling back. I've been making informed purchasing decisions. Very good. You've bought the right gear. It's nice when you have a reference point. You are welcome, of course, Martin. I hope you enjoy your archery and your gear. And hopefully you improve, just like I've seen in the last few days. Shalasa again, wouldn't that mean you need a tiller all the time? No, it wouldn't, because you set your tiller for one particular distance. And that's typically your point on distance. So the distance you shoot most, or the distance where you can aim point blank, would probably be where you would set your tiller. So you don't have to change your tiller just because you're shooting at 10 meters rather than 20 meters or 30 meters. You have a tiller set at one particular point. Now that does mean that you will have unequal tension on the limbs at certain distances. That is true. So there is going to be an inherent amount of, desynchronization. The limbs won't be perfectly working together at certain distances. But with modern bows, the limb speed is so fast that the differences are marginal. If we were talking about slower limbs, then yes, this could be a problem because one limb will move much faster than the other limb because the distances are different now. But with modern limbs, it's so close together that you wouldn't really notice as much unless you really string walk. And yes, Rocket Fist, English longbow competitions are basically least misses. Even bare bow, like modern bare bow, at long distance rounds, yeah, same thing. Like it's kind of like the people who shoot bare bow or longbow on modern target distances, which might be 60 or 50 meters. They're counting how many they don't miss, because the person who hits more will score more. That's basically it. And yeah, like old style competitions, the person who misses the least, or the person who hits generally closer to the target will win. That is true. Again, you're welcome, Amina. Glad you enjoyed your archery as well. Jacques, on a random note, when you did the string making tool videos, what size serving did you use for what size nocks? I didn't change my serving for the nocks. I used 0.018 inch servings. So all my servings are 0.018. I used to use 0.021, but I use 0.018 for most of my servings. That's just what I have. If you were really in the customizing zone and you had custom knocks and you would have like different size threads, then yeah, I would change my thread to match the knock. But because I'm making for club bows and the arrows have different knock sizes, I didn't care about the thread. I just used the colors. The threads were all the same thickness, but I didn't really pay attention to how good the fit was. We have some very small arrows which will always be tight fits, but no arrow was too loose. And especially for a club bow, you want a tighter fit, not a looser fit, because you don't want the arrow to come off the string and you dry fire the bow. So I use a slightly thicker serving size for all the knocks, not just mine. My one is slightly tight. I use the same things. I have a 16 strand string, and I use the 0.018 serving, and I use the large Eastern knocks. It's a tight fit. I can probably use a smaller serving size, or a larger knock, but I chose to have a slightly tight fit because I do sometimes have trouble with the larger knocks of the thinner serving, keeping my arrow on the string. It used to frustrate me. So to compensate, I use a tighter fit rather than a looser fit. So the knock test, I don't quite pass it. If I tap hard enough, I could. But I actually don't pass the tap test. But again, with bad experiences, I've dry fired my bow a few times. I compensate by being slightly too thin. It doesn't really affect your shooting as much if it's slightly too much, but it's okay. So last time, should the brace height be high or low to silence the bow a bit? Generally, a larger brace height will be quieter. That's because the string will not slap the limb as hard. So, okay, let's get my Samick Sage, which is always next to me now. Hello, here. And by the way, I might do SBTs and chill. I think people are demanding that. We might try that. Okay. So, the thing is that with the brace height, the smaller the brace height, the more distance the string will travel before the arrow is loosed. So that means there should be a bit more energy in the arrow. But if you have a lower brace height, it will be louder. And I have seen this. Like I used to shoot my win and win with a string that was way too long, so I didn't notice at the time. But I was basically carving my arm off because the brace height was about this much, so it was loud. It sounded like I was dry firing every shot. I wasn't, but there was so much slap that it was super loud. So it will slap here. Okay, so that string with a very short brace height will slap this a lot harder. If the brace height was larger, like significantly larger, then there'll be less contact with this place here. The string will travel a shorter distance, so you will lose some energy in the arrow, but you can have a more quiet string. So that is the answer to the question. So if you want to silence your bow, or make it quieter, especially for brace height and tuning, then you will want to increase the brace height, which I have to do in my bow at one point to tune a bit better. But it's not just sounds like a sweet spot. You should be alright. Okay, Sergio. Is it too soon after a few months to mount a sight on my Samick Polaris and try a new anchor? It's never too soon. The thing to remember is that you shoot the style that you intend to shoot. If you intend to shoot with sights and or stabilizers, the sooner you do that, the better. The skills you learn shooting bow don't transfer over to shooting sights. You can learn the fundamentals of archery using sights. Just because you spend months learning to shoot bow doesn't mean you will start sightless shooting at a higher level. In fact, you have to basically learn everything all over again because there's a new anchor point, different focus, more emphasis on expansion and aim. So it's quite different. Now, if you have the fundamentals, you can shoot any style of archery, and I've proven this, right? I learnt the fundamentals with trad barebow, and I shoot Olympic recurve sights. So when I go back to barebow, the aim technique is different, the fundamentals are still the same. That's why I can shoot bare bow at 10 meters with any bow, whether it's a Samick Sage or a Mandarin Duck Black Hunter or that stupid day cut mini bow, and group in the gold, because the fundamentals are all the same. Maybe except for the mini recurve, but they're all the same. That's why I'm going to shoot a horsebow with thumb draw at 10 meters with the same consistency, same fundamentals. So with the fundamentals in place, you can transfer the fundamentals to any new kind of archery. But you don't learn trad barebow and then progress to sighted recurve. That is not necessary. So if you want to shoot with a sight, then put it on. You won't consolidate your fundamentals any faster shooting barebow than if you would with recurve. And I think it's a mistake which people make. I made a video about this called the bow progression myth, where people have this idea where you have to master barebow or become good at barebow before you shoot sights. They're actually different things. So being good at one doesn't mean you be good at the other. So you must well choose the one you're doing and go straight to that. And the sooner you do that, the better it will be for you and the faster you'll learn. Good question. Okay. How many big loop end strings for horse bows? I've made a string for a Korean bow. That was weird because like for all the traditional bows, they've got huge loops because they have to go around the limb tip, right? So one of my friends, his bowstring is a fast flight string, I believe. For his Korean bow was frayed and was kind of worn out, so I often make him a new one. So I made one on the jig. And the loops had to be huge. I wasn't sure I could do it because like you can only do so much on the loop. But we managed it. It just fit. So I've made a Korean bowstring using my jig. Which is quite interesting because the loops are so big. I know what I was doing, but kind of roughly estimate how big it would be. And it worked. The most important thing was it worked. Not sure I'll do it again. If I had to replace a bowstring, I probably could. There you go. Alright. Alright, what else are we? What else? Yeah, so Shalasa, yes. Yeah, if you have a short brace height, it will sound like a clap, right? So it will sound like you're dry firing. Again, if your brace height's too short, it sounds like you're dry firing. It slaps very, very hard. Yeah, Flemish twist. People ask what's the difference between endless loop and Flemish twist. Flemish twist is a bit quieter. The endless loop strings are thinner. The loops will end and it'll slap the string a lot harder. Flemish twist has less contact and it's more gets cushioning because there's no serving, there's no narrow point in the string, so it'll be a little easier to silence or to quiet a Flemish twist string. It's why I love the trad bows have Flemish twist. Endless loop is just louder. Flemish twist is good. Is the top and bottom loop serving coming loose a potential major problem? It's the end of the serving down the string, not up the loop. Okay, if the loop is coming loose, that is a bit more problematic because that means the string itself will eventually become abrased against the limb tip. The limb tip is abrasive. Repeated contact with the limb tip will eventually wear the string. So if the loop itself is loose, then it will cause damage and the string will eventually snap. Happened to me. I wasn't paying attention to my top loop. I was pretty new at the time. My top loop was wearing thin, and eventually it snapped. I shot gold at 30 meters, but the string snapped, so my practice session was over. Didn't have a spare. Had to bring it to a shop, make a new one. Back then I couldn't make the string, so I didn't have to buy one. So I brought it to a shop and I bought one. It was like $20. And yeah, that's my first string break. But if it's the end of the serving, then the answer is no, it's fine. Just make sure you fix it because that's an easy fix. Just tie the game. If you let it, if it remains loose and it unravels, that's bad. But it's a very easy fix. Very easy. Yeah, modern barebow looks weird with silencers. If you're shooting like a target style recurve with silencers, that's weird because most of the modern barebows are shot on a target range where noise doesn't matter. So you don't want to compromise performance for silence or noise suppression because you don't need to do so. Silencers are more important for field and hunting especially. And people buy like silencers because they want the bow to sound like a rather than a bang, which makes sense if you want to silence it because it's kind of like how people have like like more ninja guns. When you pimp the gun out with like silencers and Picatinny rails and attachments. Like most people don't need them, but they buy them because it looks good and it kind of feels the way the weapon should be handled. And then same with bows. You see people shoot trad bows with silencers, but they don't need the silencers for anything. They just buy them. But that's fair. If you want to make a sound a certain way, that's alright too. I'm buying mufflers for a vehicle we don't need mufflers. But yeah, it's kind of weird on a modern bow. That's true. What else is there? Yeah, by the way, endless loop is a faster string. Yeah, the flemish switch is slightly slower, which is why it's a bit quieter. Let's see. Is there any reason anymore to use fast flight? Isn't the choice now down to either Dacron for cheapness or Dyneema Spectra string? Fast flight is a material that was very popular around 15 years ago because back then it was Dacron or it was fast flight. Nowadays, most people use Dyneema or Spectra. That's normal now. Is it use fast flight? Not particularly, but it is something you can get. Although the market has moved towards Dyneema and Spectra. Some people still prefer fast flight because they're used to it. They grew up on it. Jacques, what signs should recurve archers look for in excessive string wear and tear? One thing is first how dry the string is. If you don't wax your string and you leave in the sun, it dries out. It become like a very brittle texture. Check out my string maintenance video. I compared like a 15-year-old string which hasn't been waxed and maintained with a brand new string, the same material. One is plain. Actually, I might show it to you. What am I talking about? This is my channel. I can do this. String maintenance. Yep, here it is. Like sometimes I kind of laugh at Google for like recommending me all the time, but sometimes it's just really useful to see the same strings. All right, let's have a look. Where is that screenshot? This is probably not the best. Wow, 50,000 views? Who watches this stuff? Who watches this crappy videos? Okay, so here we go. I'm watching my own videos. Here we go. This is what you look out for, okay? So this is the old string. So a couple of things here. Check for the loops in the serving. If it's really frayed, that's kind of bad. Eventually, the string itself will become damaged. That's still usable. The whole string's usable, by the way. But it's dry. It's like really it's like unwashed hair for like months. It's very dry. Okay, and see it doesn't even fold properly. It just bends. So the flexibility is gone. There's no more stretch. It's worn out. That's what it is basically. What's my subtitles, by the way? I might have said the same thing. Yeah, very very dry. Watch the subtitles. So there you go. So that's what it is. I'm narrating my own video. Okay, that's a good example it looks like. Okay, now compared to that's the old string. Again, lots of wear and tear. Serving, it's usable, but it's starting to wear thin. But these ones here, they're getting really worn out. So if you use, especially on a high poundage bow, it tends to wear out faster. But you can see distinct, very hard, dry strands. You also see fibers coming out. Like if the fibers are fraying, then the strands are already broken. Okay, so you can't fix these. People think that you can wax them and just fix the problem. It doesn't, by the way. If you see this fraying here, it means they're already snapped. Remember, each strand is formed of smaller fibers, and when enough fibers, if there's too much fraying, that means the strand will fail. And the bowstring will still function, but when it's like it'll reach a point of critical failure. You will see this way before it happens, but this is a sign of a string which is not maintained. Should replace that, bin that string. See, that's a nice close up there. So these things, waxing might slow down further damage, but this is a string which is basically, it's usable, but not particularly great. Now, in contrast, this is a brand new string which I made, well back then it was. So that's a comparison there, see? Brand new string versus the old string. That's Dacron, side by side. You can see unraveling, serving. That's not going to stop the string from functioning, but it'll slow it down a bit. And especially in the exposed areas, will start to get wear and tear. But that is basically, that's way past its use by date. That's brand new. I can't explain it better than this, guys. This is probably the best example of how to compare strings side by side. Freshly made and about 15 years old, unmaintained. So there we go. That is the question answered. So that's for you, Jacques, I think. That was your question. Phew. That's a lot of string enthusiasts. String theory. Play Hunter. I've had to tighten the serving on the loops more than once, just annoying. So how long? But as long as the loop itself is intact, no big deal. Yeah. Like some of our loops, we put like we taped them, so we put like tape over the strings. These were our junior bows, so we didn't replace the strings. The strings were fine, and our coach couldn't have time to make any, so we just put tape on the end, and it shot fine. As long as the string itself is okay, it shoots fine. Can a bow snap if a string snaps? For a modern bow, unlikely. It may result in a dry fire, by the way. It depends on how it breaks. Normally, if the string loop breaks, it breaks on release. It doesn't break when you pull it back. Surprisingly, it breaks on release. Something to do with the transfer of energy causes excessive stress on the string, which means it snaps on release. So you don't dry fire the bow. But if the string, if you pull it back and the string snaps, then it's effectively a dry fire, which means potentially, yes, you can destroy the bow. So you might want to be careful of that. Bamboo Wannabe, the advantages and disadvantages of face walking. Advantages, you have static reference points, and they're more easily felt in a tactile way. So if you're a tactile archer, then you may find yourself touching parts of your face to be easier than counting how many threads are on your tab to do string walking. Disadvantage is that, well, there are only so many reference points. If you have to shoot a certain distance of your bow, you may have an awkward placement to get that. So, I mean, the best parts are under the jaw, or call the mouth, or cheek, or eye, or something, or nose, string the nose. So you find certain ways to place the string to shoot certain distances. But some distances may have an awkward in-between where you have to shoot a certain way to get it right, and it might feel a little weird. In addition, your face will change. Your face structure may change. Your face is fleshy, so you'll find yourself moving quite easily. So it isn't the easiest reference point. Whereas string walking, you pull to the same spot. You might pull here, string walking. As long as your measurement is correct, then that should be static. So generally, string walking is going to be more accurate than face walking. So string walking is almost the same as using the sight. If you know the distance, you know exactly how much that gap will be in your finger tab. You put it there, anchor, you're going to hit the spot. Face walk is a bit more variable, slightly more variable, but it's mostly because it relies on more adjustment here. So string walking, there's only one point of adjustment. You pull the same anchor point. With face walking, there's more adjustment to do. So it's a bit hard to get right. So it depends on your preferences, but some people refer to face walk. But I think most of the top barber shooters will string walk. Yeah, you shouldn't walk on people's faces. That's true. What do I think of B55 string material? It's equivalent to Dacro. I mean, like, it's more durable, yet they'll say that. Is it much different from B50? Possibly, but isn't that different, honestly? Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't really notice much. Like, by the time you see the string like starting to wear out, it's time to replace it. It doesn't matter what Dacro it is. B50, B55, it's going to be the same for most bows. Is it safe to use compound string material for recurves? For modern recurves, it's acceptable. You can use a compound string on recurve. It won't destroy the bow, but it can be a little harder on the limb tips. The thing with the compound string materials is that the string materials of a compound will have less stretch. There are two things, and watch my series on bowstring materials, I think about the specifics. But there are two things to think about. There's stretch and there's creep. Creep is how much the string will extend over time. So over time, all bowstrings will creep a little longer. Dacron will creep a lot. Fast flight and modern bowstrings like Dyneema will do less, and compound strings basically have no creep. The second thing is stretch. The stretch is how much a string itself will stretch. I've got bowstrings here. Let's pick a bowstring. They're all tied up here. What am I doing? Alright, let's grab this string. This is the old Barbie string, okay? So this is made from the fast flight. No, this is made from A125G. So, basically, at full draw, when you pull it back, the actual string will stretch a very small amount. You pull it, the string is not rigid. It will stretch. Even in my hands, there's probably like a few millimeters of stretch at like a half draw here, right? So the string itself will stretch. Dacron will stretch more. This is important because the stretch will give some forgiveness on the string. So when you pull it back and you let go, the stretch will slow the string down. And this is very important on the limb tips, because this is why we have the idea of fast flight compatible. Bows with reinforced limb tips will be able to handle the extra speed of a less stretchy string. So Dacron is stretchier, but it's slower. That also means that a traditional bow with wooden limbs, with wooden tips, will be less susceptible to cracking. You shoot a string that is less stretchy and therefore faster, then it will be more likely to crack the limb tips. So if you shot a compound bowstring material of a traditional recurve bow, then you're going to damage the limb tips. Now, if you shot a compound bowstring of a modern recurve, it's still hard on the limbs, but the limbs are basically made to be super tolerant to stress. So it's unlikely to do anything to the bow. But modern compound strings are designed to be as much less stretchy, maintain speed. Okay, back in the day when there was no compound string material, they used Dacron. And the problem with Dacron is it stretches. So it still shoots for a compound, but you can use Dacron for a compound. But the performance is subpar compared to a modern compound material. That's why you have differences between compound strings and crossbow strings and recurve strings. Creep and stretch. Generally less creep is better, but for recurve, you actually want some stretch. If there's not enough stretch, then it will be too fast for the limbs. That may cause damage. That's my basic explanation. Yeah, any real differences between string materials, as bare bow want to be mentioned, it's you need to shoot a lot of bows and a lot of strings for a difference. Like the reason why I go 8125G, which is Player Hunter's questionnaire, the reason why I go that, I can get easier. I can buy more stock from more colors, more stock, and because I start with 8125, I have no reason to go to a different material, because I don't have to buy like 10 colors of Dyneema, for example. Or 10 colors of Angel Majesty, whereas I can only buy so much because I don't use the string material as much, right? It costs quite a bit to collect string materials, and if I don't use them, why should I buy them? So if I have 8125G, I can stock like every color and buy one of each and have plenty of options. But if I have two different kinds of string, I can't mix and match because they're different. You don't want to mix and match string materials. You have to be the same one. Let's see. Yeah, that's the string question there. Will string walking in your face? Yes, by the way. Certain face walking positions will bring the string quite close to your face, especially the nose. If you have a very big nose, you find yourself the string hitting the nose quite easily. And I see some people wear band-aids or bandages on the nose to stop the string from scraping the nose. In addition, by the way, if you use brass knocking points, don't face walk. It's a bad idea. If you like your face, don't face walk with brass knocking points. I have a new guy at the club asked why. It's like, well, you'll find out. Recurves can use 8125G, although they probably use 8190 more than 8125G. The ratio of spectra to Dyneema is a bit different. And yeah, 8125 is just my go-to, just because it's easy for me to get. I started with it, so I just want getting extra ones. Yes, even Nicolas will work, even Paracord will work. See, Paracord can work as a string, but Paracord has way too much stretch, right? So it's why youth recurves, the fiberglass ones, use paracord. Because paracord is cheap, it's safe, and it's pretty durable stuff. It has very high weight tolerance, but paracord is so stretchy. It's a terrible bowstring. It's slow. Paracord is super slow, but it can be used as a bowstring. A lot of things work as bowstring. Use like a dental floss as bowstring. Problem with dental floss, it'll snap, and it doesn't stretch. Thank you, Play Hunter. Yes. Yeah, steel creeps and stretches. Steel cables will stretch. Look at the Golden Gate Bridge. The giant red cables are made of hundreds of smaller cables, which are made of thousands of smaller cables, and it will stretch. A finger tap with a little pinky rest, the little finger one, right? Is it helpful? Depends on your style. You will find that most professional archers don't use the little finger. I've tried it. I personally don't like it. The reason why some people might use it is because it might help them get the hand in the right position. The disadvantage of using the pinky rest is that you might find yourself putting pressure on that rest, therefore changing the tension in your hand and the position of your drawing hand. So there are pros and cons. I think the most of the professional archers don't use it because they want to have a natural hand position, not one that's forced by shape. I used to use one. It used to get in the way all the time, so I didn't like using it. So if you find that you need to use it and it helps you, then use it. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother. Do I move indoors during winter, as in shoot indoors? Unfortunately, I don't, because I don't have an indoor range close by that I can easily get to. Our club shed isn't really indoor range. It's only 10 meters, as you see in the videos. So we don't really shoot indoor for our club. The main reason why I move indoors isn't because it's cold. It might be raining. It's not really cold, not like snow cold. The reason why I shoot indoors more in winter is because it gets dark sooner. We don't have an outdoor range. It gets dark at like 5 o'clock. I mean, now with daylight savings and with the autumn passing, it gets dark around 5:30, and then about 6 o'clock it gets really dark. Yeah, as Baber said, yeah, that metal thing adds tension to the hand. Now, I used to use it. I dropped it. No, it just didn't work for me very well. Shalasa, how long should a string be used? Is there a recommendation? Depends on how often you shoot, right? So for a casual archer, a string might last around a year, maybe a year and a half, 2 years if you're really casual. But for a serious regular shooter, you can go through a string every 6 months. And you always have spare strings for your shot through, because strings perform differently depending on how much you shoot them. So an archer might have a second string which they alternate and they shoot regularly so that both strings are worn in. So if you have to replace the string, then the second string is correctly calibrated to your bow. And of course that's why you see professional archers have 2 bows. If something goes wrong the first bow, they use the second one. And the second one is completely the same as the first one, exact same calibration. And they'll alternate the bows in competition so that both bows are equally shot in. They wouldn't get a brand new bow and string it and calibrate it and not shoot it. They'll shoot both bows. I had a good question there. Yeah, Byron's right, by the way. The pinky rest makes you conscious. I find it like I naturally, when I shoot, I don't use my pinky for much. Some people say pinky should be pressed against your neck, so when you full draw, you might push against the inner muscle here. It's a good reference point. So having no pinky rest means that you can anchor at your jaw, and then you can touch this particular tendon or muscle. But I naturally keep it off. I find it just curl it and it's fine. The thing gets in the way for me. You have to set it to be exactly right, otherwise you just put the wrong pressure on. For me, not really worth it, but it can add a bit more consistency, or it can make it worse. depending on how you shoot it. Rocket Fist. Between your videos, Facebook comments, and forums, I constantly see people obsessing over draw weight. Any ideas on helping to persuade people that mental side of art is more important? That's a good question. Like draw weight is just the fascination of draw weight is bizarre sometimes. And again, same with me. Every time someone asks me, what draw weight should I get? I'm 5'2". I weigh 120 pounds. What draw weight should I get? It's like I can't really explain where it comes from. For some people, it's an ego thing. Well, for most people, draw weight, it's because you have to choose draw. It's kind of like with color, you can choose color by yourself. You don't need help with that. But like people don't know what the weights mean, and they know it means like how much it pulls, but you don't physically know what it means to pull back 20 pound or 30 pound or 40 pound. For someone like me, for example, I don't use imperial in my life, so I don't know what a pound exactly weighs like. Those in Americans will always know what pounds are, but I don't know what a pound feels like. I know what a kilogram feels like. So if someone tells me your bow has effectively a pull of 18 kilograms, I go, oh, that's actually pretty big. 18 kilograms is not what I normally carry, right? So imagine carrying your backpack full of rocks, and that's a heavy fingertips. So I guess one of the things is you have to put it in a way that people can relate to. Okay, it's like like we use like shopping bags. Like, can you lift an 18 kilogram or a 40 pound shopping bag with one hand on the fingertips? Yeah. Oh yeah, no, in real life, people also about weight. I think when archers ask what weight, it's less about ego, more about like, I always ask, weight too, because it's the one thing I know everything else about it, right? I can see how long it is, I can see what color it is, I can see what model it is. So the thing I can't see is how heavy it is. And that way you can kind of make sense of the technique and how they shoot if they're having an easy time or a hard time. So if someone's shooting really easily and having fun and shooting really well, I was like, what's your draw weight? It's like, oh, it's 26 pounds. Okay, that makes sense. And then you have people like our student who was like shooting, it's really hard time pulling it back. And I was, what's your draw weight? At 30 pound. So knowing helps. Yeah, knowing helps. And people just want to know because they're kind of seeing like where you are. Some people have an ego where it's, oh, I shoot a 50-pound bow. Yeah, some people have that. But for the average person, I think it's less a fixation on draw weight and more just want to know because it's kind of like like every hobby you do, you want to find out things, right? It's kind of like you bought a new PC. And they'll ask, oh, what's your how fast is your processor? What graphics card do you have? How much RAM do you have? So they just want to find out more specs because people want to know specs, right? You buy a new car, they'll ask, how strong the engine is, how many horsepower the car has. If you buy, anything, people want to find out specs because specs is just you want to say these things. You like to say, I've got a 68-inch IOF. 40-pound bow, 50-pound the fingers, and like, oh, sounds like you know what we're talking about. So it's less a fixation. It's more not so much on draw weight, but more on specs in general. People like specs, cars, computers, bows. As a compound shooter, feet per second, always. You see, like compound shoot, they always compare feet per second, and the recurve, the recurve never measure speed, but a compound shooter always does, and they get pissed off when they're like more than 2 feet per second off from average. How do you know when the string is at the end of its life? The string will not reach a natural end to its life. You can use a string for 15 years and it'll still shoot okay. Unless if the string is damaged, then it's reached the end of its useful life. But as you saw in the video before, you can have a 15-year-old string and it will still shoot. It will still shoot. It might not be as good as what it used to be, but it will still shoot. It's a very gradual process where you will lose speed. That's really it. If you don't measure speed, you will never know. So you can't tell it is a natural. I don't think there is a natural end to a string slab unless it's damaged. The string will continue to be usable, but it will have diminishing returns basically. Let's see. What do you think about pressing the thumb and the pinky like the Boy Scout salute? Ah, good question, right? The Scout salute, right? I used to be a Boy Scout, by the way. Little trivia there. I used to be a Scout. Little young man. I hate Scouts. People used to love Scouts. I know people in America are very proud of Scouting. You see, like people are very proud of their Eagle Scout badge and so on. My Scouting experience was more negative. Unfortunately, I might talk about that in a future vlog or something. But I used to be a Scout and I hated it. For different reasons. Not because Scouts are bad, but because my experience with Scouts is very negative. The Boy Scout salute. Scout's honor. Okay. So, what do I think about using this as a hook? The wrong intention. It can work, by the way. There's nothing wrong with it. You can definitely pull it back and shoot fine. But the problem, I think, is that by doing this, you're creating tension here, right? That's not a relaxed grip. That is the tension in the back of the hand. To get that right, you need this flat hand, right? You don't. If you try to get like these things touching, you see my hand structure change. So you go from that, all right, and I'm not doing it right. I'm doing it this way, right? So you go from that. So you have this reference point here, and then you go to that. I don't know. You can see tension. Doesn't feel right to me. If you anchor like this, I'll try that with the same XH. It's harder to get an anchor point. You probably could. Yeah, no, you can definitely use it. You can definitely shoot with it. It's not wrong. But I find that it puts your hand in a strange shape with extra tension, which I don't think is particularly good. Can be done with it, but nah. Not a technique we just taught. And Baby one, we got it right, by the way. Spot on there. It adds more tension. Yeah, Byron shares a good example. You know, your weight progression, yeah, 32 to 40 is a big jump. And the thing people that underestimate with jumping draw weight is that draw weights going up in draw weight sets you back. It doesn't make you shoot better; it makes you shoot worse until you get confident using the draw weight, and that takes time. And a lot of people never go that high. I had a mistake because when I was choosing my next poundage, I had 34. I wasn't sure if I wanted 38 or 40 or 42. And a guy I used to shoot with, he said, look, you know, most people get 40 pounds within a month, you know, 50 pound. Yeah, you're an adult, you can shoot 50 pound. And it wasn't an egotist, by the way. He shot English war bow. That's the difference. So he shot a much higher poundage bow in a different style. So when he said that, he meant really well, and in his mind, he knew he was right for his style. What I learned was it didn't apply to my style. When I have to shoot many arrows repetitively, in addition, he was a big Italian man. I'm a small Asian guy. My frame is much less well built to handle high draw weight. I'm not a strong guy. I don't have good core muscles or good frame. So for me, it was good advice, but applied the wrong way. So yeah, the draw progression for me was also similarly terrible. It wasn't for finances, but more for kind of bad advice, given with good intention. But now that I know better, I wouldn't give the same advice to myself. I would have gone for a 36-pound bow and then go to a 40-pound bow. I wouldn't give a 34 to 40. I just didn't know the time, and I priced myself back for many years. I'll probably still shoot better with 36-pound bow, honestly. But I still stick on 40-pound bow. Like, I should be able to. But, yeah, bad decision making. Yeah, Spectre sexy, yeah, that's true. Is it bad to use vein to touch my ear as an anchor using Mediterranean draw? No. No, if you like if you draw that far back, right? That's like the English longbow style. They draw back to the ear. So that's pretty normal. Yeah, Definitely right, Byron. Now, if people go for high draw weight, it destroys careers. All right, starting too high and moving up too quickly destroys careers. If it doesn't physically ruin your muscles because you don't handle it well, even if you can handle it, you will never develop good form if you don't control the bow. And that's why I'm so strict on draw weight. People say, oh, you're 40 pound. Yeah, that's great, good on you. But there are many people who can't handle 40 pound. They buy one, they can't pull it back. If you can't pull it back, you can't look good form. That's why that's kind of I reached the point where I refuse to teach people who are shooting hard draws because you can't do anything with them. You literally can't do anything to someone who is drawing, he can't draw the bow back. What do you learn when you do archery? You have to learn the correct draw technique, safe from the right muscles. You have to learn to anchor. You have to learn to release. And if you can't pull the bow back, you can't anchor. Again, this is the worst thing I've seen. Is one of our somebody went to our field 8 years ago, and he bought himself a Martin Jaguar. He could only draw it back this much. So every shot he did at 40 meters, like just drawing halfway and letting go, drawing halfway and letting go. Is that archery to you? Honestly, like when you can't pull the bow back more than like 5 inches, is that really archery? He just tried to lob it. He was missing every shot. He just couldn't hit because he had no anchor point. He couldn't aim. He couldn't use sights. He couldn't use bare bow. He couldn't pull it back. And you can't teach someone who has a bow that can't pull back. What can you do? This is the classic gym problem too, and people who can't lift a weight. You can't teach someone how to lift weights, whether a bicep curl or bench pressing. If they can't actually lift the thing, you can't teach them proper form. There's zero gain. So it's why again with draw weights, you just watch people. People send me form checks, and I'll say first thing is your bow's too heavy. You cannot learn. You cannot learn if the bow's too heavy, no matter what you do. That's why I was glad that my junior student, he made the right choice and bought lighter limbs. Yeah, his dad's probably unhappy because he had to spend more money, but at least he can shoot the bow now. And the fact that he can anchor, I taught him how to use a clicker. I taught him to drop his shoulder. He was making progress. He couldn't do anything last week because the bow was just too heavy for him. Pulls it back and he destroys his muscles. Right? I know I'm very passionate about this, but trust me, you don't want to ruin your shoulders. I mean, I used to load my shoulder so badly, right? I'm surprised, honestly, in hindsight, I haven't destroyed my shoulder. I just shoot like this all the time, not because it was too heavy, but because I wasn't used to the draw weight. Maybe it was too heavy, and I never got this technique right. So I would put a lot of strain on my shoulder. In fact, one of my club competitions, my very first shot, I strained my shoulder. First shot. I was so pissed off at myself. And I shot the whole round with an injured shoulder. And that was just freaking terrible. That is career ending if you really F it up. And I didn't F it up that badly. I just strained it. It wasn't like I tore it. But I was just really screwing it up. I shot a person at best. But that was agonizing. I should not have done that. Man, you gotta take it seriously. And even as I got used to the weight, I just kept on popping my shoulder up there. And like every second week, I would be afraid to practice because I felt this would be tender. I couldn't lift my arm properly this way, right? And I know, in hindsight, I did it incorrectly, and that could have ended really badly. Yeah, exactly. Get strong first. Don't attempt the hard stuff until you have enough strength. Jacques, when would I recommend X10s? When you can afford it. Right? Depends on your attitude towards buying new things. Okay? Some people might find, if you see yourself if you see high-end arrows as an elite status symbol, then you might not want to get them, especially if your current arrows are serving you well enough. So, you basically, if you feel like your form is good enough, but your arrows are letting you down, you buy better arrows. That's a very good question, okay? So the arrows actually aren't the cause of most form problems. I just said that. So if you're shooting well, and your scores aren't improving, and your groups aren't improving, get better arrows. But if the arrows are grouping everywhere, or they're basically scattering everywhere, it isn't the arrow, it's you. Fix your form first. Once you reach the point where you can't group any better, then get better arrows. That's the benchmark. Would I go up to the X10s right away? It's kind of like going from your cheap limbs to expensive limbs. When do you say it's enough? And the main factor is when you can afford it. That's my personal advice. I bought the X10s. I said I wouldn't buy X10s until I got a personal best. I didn't quite get there because I ran out of arrows. My ACEs, I just broke them, right? So I thought, I might as well buy X10s. Because for me, I had the money to do so. And if I keep on buying cheap arrows, I'm like, well, why? I know X10s are better for what I use them for. So why should I keep buying third tier or second tier arrows when I can afford X10s? So I bought X10s. Didn't regret it. Have I made it worthwhile? Hell no. I shoot crap. I probably should be using the regular arrows, like the carbon express arrows or the ACEs. ACEs would be very good for me. So I used ACEs for a long time. Didn't bother with X10s. When I had to buy new arrows, I bought X10s. But yeah, the main factor is I had the money. I could afford to do so. And the X10s basically removed a certain variable. So basically, the arrow was better than what I could shoot. At least it wasn't the arrow. So whatever happened, it wasn't the arrow's fault. It was my fault. Whereas, when you're shooting with, mediocre arrows or cheap arrows, it could be you, it could be the arrow. So it's a good point to buy good equipment because it eliminates a variable. That's my advice. So when you get it, when you feel like that your arrows are letting you down. This is more apparent at long distance. Short distances, like 30 meters, you still shoot well with all your arrows because the point of X10s, they've got very good performance over distance. At close distance, you don't need high performance arrows. So if you never shoot like more than 50 meters, well, why get X10s? Whew. Good question. Why are horse bows so fast? Thank you, John. That's a good question. Horse bows are normally composite materials. So a longbow typically is a self bow. Okay, I'm talking about English longbows or European longbows. Most of them are self bows. They're made from a single piece of wood. They may be made from different parts of the wood. So for the English longbow, you have hardwood and sapwood. So you have different materials or different parts which are stronger or more flexible. But horse bows are normally composite. So you have a layer of bone, which is very good strength, but not very good at flexibility. So that's the belly of the bow. Then you have sinew, and then you have wood. And by layering these three things together, you combine the flexibility of the wood with the hardness and strength of the bone. So you have all these strengths in a much smaller size. So a self bow, which is a wooden longbow, for example, you basically rely on the bow being a stick. The stronger the stick, the longer the stick, the stronger it is. Whereas you make a composite bow for half the length or a third of the length, and it will be more efficient and faster than a longbow. So it's to do with the materials, the combination of sinew, wood, and bone or horn. So yeah, sinew, horn, and wood, or bone and wood, will have more. Will basically fling the arrow with more energy than a longbow by itself. Basically, wood by itself versus wood, sinew, and horn. Obviously, the composite bow would be better. And of course, today we have composite materials, which aren't bone, but we have carbon or fiberglass and wood. Or bamboo in this case. There's more bamboo bows. I don't yet have a video on spine, Jake Enders, unfortunately. I haven't planned. I planned a video for a few holidays ago. I didn't have time to film it. When I filmed it, my camera settings were wrong, so I didn't get it right. I'm going to do it eventually. But the spine thing it's a very hard video to make. I'm going to do a lot of demonstrating. I'm going to do a lot of live demonstrations and how to buy arrows. It's a complex project because you have to explain it right. This is not going to be a talking head video. It'll be live demonstrations of how to read arrow charts, how to select the correct arrow, why it's important. I'll be demonstrating incorrect spine, shooting correct spines, long distance, with the bare bows. And I don't yet shoot long distance bare bows. I want to show you the flight of the arrow. it's a big project, and I just haven't had time to do so. Because if I'm going to cover a topic, I'm going to do it well. Because all my videos, I know this. My videos are go-to resources from anyone from a beginner archer, self-taught, to a club. If I put out material which is just crap, then I'm letting people down. Because people are going to use this. I don't want to make subpar, mediocre tutorials. You know me by now. You know I've got standards. And I don't want to make a video which doesn't showcase the thing correctly. And for me, I've got to show it, not just tell it. That's a very important narrative thing. But for me, I'm not going to say it's too stiff. I'm going to show you what happens when you shoot an arrow too stiff. You'll see it float to the left. You see it kind of click the bow on the way out. I'm very passionate about this because this is very important, but I've got to do it right. So yeah, that's the question there. Very nice question there. Recommendations for a first horse bow. Get a cheap one. You know, get a like a $50 bow off like AliExpress or eBay. You might think why? Because look, most like horse bows are like $400, right? My first like horse bow or Eastern style bow was sent to me by Mandarin Duck, and their bow was $80. They don't sell it anymore because it's too expensive to ship. So you can't buy that bow. But things like the ET4, the Mong Yuan or the Elon crab bow, that is a fiberglass bow that is dirt cheap. Get that. Low draw weight, fun to shoot. 15-pound bow at most, 20-pound bow. Absolute fun to use. You could buy, there are good bows. You can get like the Mariner bows. They're quite luxurious. The Ali bows are a bit cheaper. So you can get a lot of good brands for good prices. But if you want a cheap bow, get a less than $100 fiberglass bow. Shoots magnificent if you want to learn that. I said this would be a short stream. I thought a half-hour stream. I've got a lot of work to do. I thought it'd be a half-hour stream. I might do it like nearly 11 o'clock. I still got a lot of work to do. I might end it very soon. Let's get some last questions, and then we'll call it next time. I'm gonna do a form check video shortly. Not this, well, maybe this week. I'll see how much time I have. Long with a big heavy limbs. Absolutely right. It's less efficient. They're basically big, long, and heavy for the power, whereas composite bows are lighter and more compact, but have the same power. Chris, you can't keep it inside your elbow vertical properly. My teacher says I should practice. Yes, there is a point to learning correct elbow alignment. Okay, so what you're saying is your elbow, you can't keep that perfectly vertical like that, right? That's what everyone does. So the normal thing which happens is when you shoot, the string will hit the elbow. If you don't do that, at some point you will. Okay, so there is a reason why you should learn correct elbow rotation. There are two reasons. One is if you actually shoot correctly, you will hit yourself in the elbow. Okay, if you're not hitting yourself right now, you might be doing something else. You might be being too open. You might be bending your arm. You might be doing something that is different from correct form to not hit yourself. So if you allow the elbow to stick out like that, if you shoot correctly, the string will pass very close to it, if not hit it. So eventually you will hit yourself. But the other reason why you should learn correct elbow rotation is because if you don't let the elbow turn correctly, your arm and your shoulder are incorrectly aligned. Okay, this is very important that your wrist and elbow will also dictate the rotation of the shoulder. If you shoot with correct elbow alignment, your shoulder is also correct. That's part of it. If you shoot like that, with the elbow turned inwards, then your shoulder is also rotated outwards, which means when you draw back, you'll start doing this. That's part and parcel of your elbow rotation. You turn the elbow correctly in, the shoulder drops. That's why you're going to learn correct elbow rotation. It's not just to prevent yourself being slapped, but also to get your shoulder correctly aligned. Bareboat, does an archer have to buy top-end equipment to be competitive? No. You can shoot well with a mid-range bow. In the end, it's the user. There is a point where the equipment does become the bottleneck. like the arrows might be too poor, but the riser might, not I think it was Jay Bar, somebody who turned up to a championship with like a frayed string and twisted limbs and still won. So in the end, it's not the bow, it's the user most of the time. The bow itself might give you more options and squeeze a bit more feet per second and feel better on the draw, better draw force curve, smoother performance. But it's a lot of it's personal. You can still shoot an average bow and shoot it exceptionally well. Sergey, for your anchor point, depends. So you're talking about either you put the middle finger in the corner of the mouth, you use index finger, whatever feels more comfortable to you. There's no right or wrong. The ET4 by Nika Archery is what I recommended. That one did fall apart, but that's what happens when the string derails. It's not the fault of the bow itself. A lot of these bows have very narrow string bridges, if any. So it's if you torque the string and you don't shoot correctly, it will come off. And that's what happened. It wasn't a dry fire. It was just the bow slipped off the string slipped off the bridge. Yeah, I love the Mandarin Duck Chingbo as well, but yeah, they're not making it more. The reason they told me was shipping. Because it's a one-piece bow, it costs more to ship, and originally the shipping contract was very cheap, hence free shipping. But from what I was told, because post-Christmas era, it was during the Christmas period, but I don't think they put it back in the market. They couldn't ship it out for a low price. The rates changed, so the bow itself was a popular bow, but they couldn't ship it for a low price. And because they couldn't ship it for a low price, they dropped the thing. The whole appeal was it was a very cheap bow. It was a good bow, and I still love it, by the way. I still use it from demonstrations. It's a very nice bow. And it has a leather, so people love hearing the leather squeak or creak. But yeah, they don't do it anymore. Angular draw should not twist limbs. The misconception of angular draw. Sage, come back. The thing with angular draw is that people think that you are holding the bow statically in one direction and then you're twisting the limbs around like this. No, the bow pivots. So you start. I can't get this right from the camera angle here. You start like angled off, and then when you get the full draw, the bow turns in your hand. Okay, you aren't twisting the limbs around the brush. You are aligning the string and the arrow with your forearm. You pull back, the bow turns in your hand, and then you draw. So you aren't applying an incorrect directional force. Not any more than what you normally do shooting right-handed or left-handed. So it doesn't apply uneven force. What time is it there now? It's 11 p.m., which is way past what I thought it would be. Still got work to do. Gotta make up that somehow. I've got an excuse not to, but yeah, I got a few things I have to do. That's one thing I need to do, but I've got a reason not to. Hence the if you see the beginning of the stream, talk about a certain event that happened at the over the weekend, which I'm using as a bit of an excuse to kind of take it easy for a bit. I had a question before which I missed. James. Aiming for a setup which is close to Big Bucks Pro, but not quite there, like 3/5 towards X10 some glass fiber arrows. Which arrows are ACEs? If you want to get pro level equipment but not spend X10 level, ACEs. They're the best, second best arrow, and they're like 3/5 the price of an X10. ACEs are very good. ACEs used to be the best arrow during the 1980s. Okay, so during the 1980s and the 1990s, you started seeing more carbon arrows. The first carbon arrows appeared during the 1970s. So before the 1950s, it was all wood, and it was still wood up to the 1970s. But at commercial level, there was aircraft grade aluminium arrows in the 1970s. In the late 1980s, we started seeing carbon, and those were the early carbon arrows. and the carbon composites. In the 1980s, you see carbon aluminium composite arrows. Those were the Eastern ACEs. They were used as the same design was meant for stabilizers as well. So ACEs were a good brand, and they still are a very good tier 2 brand. Same price. They're pretty much 3/5 the price of an X10 literally. So if you want to have a good quality arrow, ACEs are bloody good. They were my arrow. Like my coach used them when he competed back in the 1980s, and he passed them to me, and I bought my own ACEs, and I still use them. I still have a set. The reason why I don't use it anymore is because I ran out. They broke. So X10s are bloody excellent. But as Baber just mentioned before, the X10s are specifically designed for 70-meter recurve. If you're not shooting 70-meter recurve, ACs are actually better because ACEs are a little heavier. So they would drift a bit more. Yeah, I agree, Byron. Yeah, the X10s are meant for wind because their barrel shaped design it has a better wind profile, and the test showed that X10s will have less wind drift. But if you're shooting in low wind conditions or short distances, ACEs are basically better, and they're better in field too. Yes, and ACEs are a little cheaper too. If you're shooting field, you might want to shoot an even cheaper arrow. Like, you don't want to lose ACEs either. Yes, Chrono Win, you're much of an hour. I've been streaming for like 2 hours. This is meant to be a half-hour stream. It's been 2 hours. Hey, if people like it, sure, why not? You don't get much chance to do this. Morning, Leonard, by the way. It's a reasonable 2 p.m. It's very reasonable there. Phew, jeez. This is quite a stream. This is quite a stream. Jono, peep sight on a recurve. No, it wouldn't work. The reason why it works on compound, it's let off. You can hold the compound at full draw for a long time. So you have the opportunity to perfectly align your compound shot. The other thing to keep in mind too is the compound anchor is slightly different because the compound anchor, you don't really touch it. If you're using a release aid, you don't really have a good reference point. So the peep sight is your rear sight. Literally it is. For Olympic recurve, your anchor point is your rear sight. So you don't need a peep as much. The problem is that you can't hold a recurve at full draw long enough to make the peep sight work. You basically come in and release. The smoother it is, the better. Peep sights ruin that. With a compound, you can hold that at full draw, get the peep exactly right, which is one of the reasons why compounds are so much more accurate, is because of peep sights. And there are other reasons too. I mean, the cams and the release aids. But yeah. Whew. Yes, Jock, by the way. Yeah, AC is better because in no wins. Again, like I said before, that some people will carry both ACEs and X10s and will choose which one to use on the day depending on conditions and what round's being shot. Look, I don't have a peep sight. I don't shoot compound. Oops, didn't do that. I didn't do that either. Look, I'll show you what I mean. It's something easy to show you. Like, Google it, basically, right? Compound peep sight. Peep sight. Okay, this is just the best example. Just show you. Just shows you. Bing, there we go. Okay, so that's a peep sight. So what you see here, it's a small circle which goes onto the string itself. It sits between the string, and what it does this, okay? When you pull a full draw, you have a smaller loop that helps you align with the bigger loop. So basically match these things, and it looks like this, okay? So this big thing here in front of your eye is the peep sight, and your actual sight is over there in front. So you have a rear sight and a front sight. And for a compound bow, it is set at the correct length and distance from your eye to be the perfect rear sight. That's why it works. The thing is though, it must be held correctly to function. When you shoot recurve, you can't do that. You can't hold the string in a way in which you can get the peep sight right, because the string is like your release is reliant on smooth process. You can do this on a 50-pound compound because at 50 pounds with a let off, it's around 15 pound or 20 pound. You can hold that. I can hold 20 pound all day. But if you are shooting a recurve, it's 50 pound, you can't hold that all day. You gotta let go. and you can't get the peep right on a recurve string. It's just way too hard to do so. Oh yeah, it doesn't ruin the string. It sits between the string. The string contains many strands, right? We see back to the picture here. So in this case, it's a two-color string. I'll go here. It's a two-color string, and basically it sits between the strands. It doesn't go in the string. The string isn't solid. The string has multiple threads and strands, so it sits between them. It doesn't ruin the string at all. For a alias sense, you get slapped by the string. I also anchor past my ear. What you might do is tilt the bow. Depends on your style, right? If you're shooting Gao Ying style, they tilt the bow. They have to, right? If you're straight, it's different. If you're anchoring past here, then you need to basically either drop the anchor point a bit or turn the bow a bit more. So probably canting the bow might solve your problem. It also adds weight, yes, true. It works on compound because compounds are bloody fast, so you don't need to worry about losing velocity. But recurves is a lot slower, so yes, you need to also worry about that. It's not the biggest thing; it's a very light thing, but it does add weight to the bow. The portal compound, portal compound, you have the most precise tool. It's like you have like pistols and rifles. Rifles are superior accuracy. Compound is archery combined with modern engineering. So it's like bicycles and motorcycles. Now, you might not like motorcycles. You might ride a bicycle because it's more physical, but a motorcycle is faster. Get you there better. Oh yeah, no. Arrows like Eastern is like kind of the dominant like market share, but other brands are fine too. The other popular brand is Carbon Express. They make very good arrows, and for more the hunting style, you have like Gold Tip. They're very good as well. I mean, like most people who make arrows, specifically do hunting arrows, which are thicker and more durable. But target arrows tend to be more the domain of Eastern, and to a lesser extent Carbon Express. All right. I reckon I'll go now because it's like 11 o'clock to be like a 2 hour stream, which is completely like way past my bedtime. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Alex said, yeah. Cant the bow. Yeah. Garving does 20 degree cant. Your giant head needs more cant. Check your head position too. Like if you're tilting your head too much, you might as well slap yourself. My main problem with when I shoot Gao Ying style, I have my glasses in the way. Canting solves that problem, so I can avoid hitting the side of my glasses by canting the bow. If I shoot with my anchor point here, it will clip the side of my glasses. So by tilting a bit, canting a bit, I can get around that. It might solve your facial problem as well. I'll get a smaller head. But yeah, as Iron Pirate just said. It might be your head angle too. One thing I recommend, Alia, is film yourself shoot. You don't need to share it with anybody, but film yourself and watch yourself. Because when you film yourself, you'll see things that you do that you don't realize you do if you don't already do so. But film yourself, definitely. Well, the reason why I share my training videos, people want to watch me shoot. That's great. People give feedback, which is even better. But I see myself shoot and go, wow, I didn't realize I did that wrong. There were two videos which I'm going to showcase at some point. One is one of my videos where I shot my Olympic recurve. I think it was the angler draw video, and I didn't realize I was canting my bow, and that's bad for Olympic recurve. It should be straight. So I canted my bow. I didn't realize it, but from a rear view, it was super clear. So I learned from that. The second thing I noticed was when I was shooting my flat bow, and I realized that my arrow was actually, my knuckle point was too low. So the arrow was basically hopping over my knuckle. And when I was shooting, I was grouping the goal. I didn't realize I was that bad. I was grouping fine. But at long distance, I lost so much velocity because it just basically bumped my hand each time. So when I watched the video, and I was reviewing the bow, and I ran out of battery, but I watched the footage, and you can see the arrow flip up the knuckle. And I went, holy crap, that really is a low knocking point. So I stopped the review. I'm going to do it again in the future. So I'm going to replace the knocking point, get it correctly aligned, so that way I don't have to jump my knuckle each time. And you only find that out by doing video footage. Tips for the arrow pattern. Okay, Shalasa, I would normally give the same tips for all first shooters, and that is, you shoot the way you do at practice. Don't expect to shoot surprisingly good at a competition. No, miracles don't happen in competitions. So shoot the way you normally shoot. Don't be disappointed if you don't come first place or second place. Try to shoot at the same method, rhythm, and standard as you would in practice. My second bit of advice, Shalasa, is that you should remember to shoot the arrow and not the score. So whatever score you have in mind, forget about it. Only think about the arrow you were shooting. And this worked for me. I was shooting a competition. I was getting disappointed. I wasn't shooting a 50 plus per end. And that was putting me down. I was shooting worse. So what you should do is remember, forget the score. Don't worry about an expectation. You might think, oh, I should be shooting 700 points. Don't think about it that way, because you'll be counting points. You'll be saying, oh, I got 50 this end, I need to get 55 next end, and you put more pressure on yourself. I mean, you don't get there, you get more disappointed, you shoot worse. No. What you do is go, I'm just going to shoot my best arrow. This next shot's my best arrow. And the next shot will be a better arrow. The next shot will be a good arrow. So just focus on doing good shots. Don't worry about where the arrows land. Don't worry about trying to get a perfect personal best. You don't try for these things. You don't try for a personal best. The personal best happens because you tried. Okay? So that's my advice for you. Okay. Alright. I will be getting off now. Oh, race free. Got a question. I'm gonna get off. I'm gonna do my work and go to sleep or something. I've been through a hard time. That's enough for me. That's enough. Okay. Don't expect too much. Yeah, I agree. But more so. Like, it's not my expectation. But remember, focus on the here and now. The arrow in front of you, the arrow in your hand, is the one you're focusing on. Don't worry about what happened before that. Don't worry about what happens next. Just do what you have in front of you, and just do it the best way you can. That is my advice. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you all enjoyed this stream. This was a surprisingly long reflection, not what I had in mind. So thank you all very much for joining me. I've learned a lot from my round today. I can't wait for my next round. I want to shoot rounds. I want to see I can do better and better each time. But of course, all things must come to an end, especially an end. So this is NUSensei. Thank you all for watching. I will be doing my next live stream with a form check very shortly. I might need one more video because I've got one good video, one not so good video. I would like one more video to start the next form check. So if you have some footage and you want me to come back for a live stream, please send it to me so that way I have something to talk about and show you guys. Okay. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Joep.